For the banks, they have major challenges today, mainly because of the nature of the consumer today. The customers are very demanding. They would like to get the best everywhere, anytime. And the banks, especially the big established banks, have ignored for a long time to look at the business model itself, how flexible it is, whether it meets the aspirations of all generations, of the wealthy, of the young professionals, and maybe the millionaires of tomorrow. It comes down to some few challenges. One of them is to transform the business model at the branch level. Today, if you look at the branches, they are mostly transaction-based, with a counter, with many queues and long queues, and there is few consultancy inside, few sales approaches. There is also a trend to migrate most of the transactions from the counter to self-service or electronic channels. Another factor that the banks are facing today as a challenge is the cost of cash. The cash is very expensive to own, to circulate, to dispense, and to replenish. This cycle is extremely expensive. So the banks are looking for ways to minimize that cost. Another layer is security. Because of the need to go electronic, the need to introduce new concepts, you have also to make sure that all the customer data and the integrity of this data is protected. One more point I think is a major challenge. You need to go with technology to enable different delivery channels. And then it becomes very complex because each of these solutions operates somehow independently. So you need to find a way how you bring all those solutions together so you can have one consolidated view on the customer. Then you understand his history, you understand his needs, and what could be the product that he needs in the future. I think the major driver is cost. The bankers would like to drive the cost down. It's a highly competitive world out there, and they need to find ways how to operate in a cheaper way. Counter is very expensive compared to internet, compared to self-service. The danger would be that you lose the connection and you lose the relationship to the customer as a result of dealing with a machine and not really dealing with human beings. But there are technologies in place that will deal with that topic as well. The other main driver is to increase the consultancy approach and the sales approach in the branch, which means you transform your teller to a seller to a banker, rather than just dealing with transactions. These are the main drivers. The major hurdles, in my opinion, are more related to the legacy systems they have. If you look at banks today, especially the established banks, we're talking about the leading banks of the world, they all have aging legacy systems, 20, 30 years old. They are trying very hard to innovate and to bring new solutions, but how to bring those pieces together, how to bring this spaghetti to give them a business advantage, to understand the customer need, in my opinion, is the major challenge that most of the banks are facing today. If you look at CRM technology today, it helps the banks to understand the behavior of the customer, first to consolidate all the data about the customer, about his history, about his dealing with the bank, and also to understand his behavior in terms of banking across the different channels. Because as a user of the bank, you sometimes use the ATM, sometimes use the internet banking, and frequently, or maybe some of the people don't like at all to go to the branch. But the bank today is lacking this one single view on the customer to enable accurate understanding of his needs, to tailor-made a product. And I think with CRM technologies today, the complete banking experience will change. I do believe J2EE as an architecture is definitely the one, because it's what we call service-oriented architecture, which means it's a middleware sitting between your legacy systems or your back-end systems, be it a new core banking application or a very aging database system that you have. So these back-end systems are all sitting on one side, and from the other side, you have all your delivery channels to the customer. Mobile banking, phone banking, branches, call center, everything. So your touch point to the customer is on one side, your back-end systems on another side. And this layer sits in between, reducing complexity, understanding what the transactions across the different channels, and bringing together the banking experience. So I do believe that this is really something that will change the banking industry altogether. There is a comeback of the branch today. 20 years ago, banks used to close or shut down their branches because they were too expensive. and they believe they can do everything electronically, and probably they believe they can do everything on the internet. They realize that branch means presence, means your own guys on the street with their ears and nose and eyes and trying to understand the customer needs, trying to look what the customer is looking for and tailor-made a proposal. So branch consultancy and business process re-engineering in a branch is probably something very important on the front end. It is how you deliver yourself, how you present yourself to the consumer. But branch is not the old branch with the counter. I'm talking here about a completely new concept. I think the main important is to inject in the organization a customer-centric culture. I don't want to say any technology will help here. I will say that the technology and the process engineering will enable this cultural change, but the cultural change should be first and should be the driving factor for everything they do. Be it technology, be it process engineering, be it new branches, new self-service channels. There should be an understanding in the bank that I have to service the customer to the maximum. I have to understand his needs. Every single consumer is looking for a different experience when he steps into the branch. Some of them look for a shopping experience. Some of them look for a wealth management experience. And the bank has to be able to adapt to all these needs.